Right, I'm going to talk to the door. Thanks very much for coming and turning out at this early hour. This talk is a bit experimental for me. This isn't the kind of thing that I normally get much involved with, but I thought it would be some fun to do. So I will start off with the kind of usual introductions about myself, and this is the kind of thing that people have to say. I'm known in the Java world, if at all, as I'm a Java champion, and I'm a Java 1 rock star in various Java 1 conferences, and I've written a couple of books, one on Java 5 and one on Java 8. So the one thing that you would get from this is that if I'm anything, then I'm a Java person, and I'm definitely not a hardware person, and that will come out many times during this talk. So one of my notable characteristics is that I'm extremely old. I'm so old. This is the first. Usually I don't show this slide. I made it up a while back, but I quite like it in the context of this talk because this is the first computer that I ever worked on. I won't say I programmed it because I didn't, but I worked on it. It was attached to a spectrometer, a very early magnetic resonance imaging spectrometer that I did some research on for my master's degree. And the idea of a mini computer in those days was something that had 4,000 16-bit words, 4K 16-bit words. And actually, I like this machine because this is the first time I'd ever come across a computer game. The spectrometers in those days were so slow, and the magnets were so weak that you had to actually stay up all night to get spectrum. Right? No, the distance that technology has come since the time that I worked on it is as big as the distance that information technology has come as well. And there was a game on it. So in the long hours of the night, when you were waiting for the spectrum to accumulate, you could shoot ducks. It was a duck shooting game on of course, on a character screen. And 40 plus years later, at Java 1. Last year, I got a nice present, which was a Raspberry Pi, about, as that says, around about £30, buys you probably, obviously I wouldn't know how much more hardware than in that mini computer that I worked on all those years ago that cost, in those days, I'm sure, thousands of pounds. So the one problem that you have if you get given this kind of nice present is, I mean, it's great, and you feel gratified that somebody thought you were worth it, but you've got a big problem of knowing what to do with the thing. And many people have received Raspberry Pis or bought them at one time or another, and then, like me, had them gather dust on the shelf for a long time. But I don't work very much during the winter, and I sat and looked at this thing, and I had an idea about what to do with it. So what I decided to do with it is the result of this. It resulted in this talk today. I live in a very nice street in Edinburgh. It's called Buccleuch Place, after it was built in the 1780s. At the time, the Duke of Buccleuch was the largest landowner in Scotland. Guess who the largest landowner in Scotland is in 2016? Not the same Duke of Buccleuch, but it's still the Duke of Buccleuch. So this Georgian terrace. I live on the right-hand side here. Here's a view from the crags that you saw on the previous slide. The Edinburgh's a nice place because it's got a mountain in the middle of it, that's good for climbing. And if you go on top of it and look down on Buccleuch Place, this is what it looks like. So I live in here. And these very elegant Georgian apartments have been bought up almost entirely by the University of Edinburgh. So I live actually inside the University of Edinburgh, more or less. And only a very few of them remain in private hands. Here's a picture of the front of the house I live in, and this is my famous front door. And although the resolution on the slide isn't very good, you can probably see that there's lots of departments of the university here, and that's the university crest. And you can actually see that the plaque above the door tells you that Francis Jeffrey lived here from 1801 to 1802 and founded the Scottish Review there. So if you're into Scottish Enlightenment history, that's a big deal. So a lot of this is really good news for me because what it means is that at weekends and in the evenings, the flats on my staircase are all emptied out because they're offices, and the only other flat that's occupied on the staircase, and indeed almost the only one on the whole terrace, is actually occupied by my son. and his girlfriend. So we have it's great because it means I can make as much noise as I want, and nobody minds, and they don't make any noise at all because they aren't there. There's only one problem, and the problem is, well, here's a picture of the problem. This is what happens when Amazon comes to call and leave me a parcel at weekends or in the evenings, which is when they usually do call. Oh, I need to get the sound. Where's the microphone? And so I thought, well, why don't I try and do something about this problem, because it's really a nuisance. Here's the entry phone system for the flat, which wasn't built in the 1780s, but as you can see, wasn't built an awful lot later. So I didn't really think very much about this until I thought of taking the front off the part that fit. This is the part that is by my front door in my flat, and this is the part that's at the front door of the main apartment, of the main door. So when the Amazon delivery man comes, or woman, I guess, and presses the button there, then they speak into here, and I get I hear them on the speaker and the little handset there. I press that button, and it operates a solenoid in the door. Pretty straightforward, really. And it never occurred to me to wonder how this worked until I levered the front off this, and you see there's just some wiring in there, as you might expect. And in fact, there's just two contacts, which, and pressing the button just shorts them out, and a 12-volt supply, and I don't even know where that is, operates the solenoid and opens the door. So that's pretty straightforward once you think about it. And so I got this idea that there might well be a connection between my Raspberry Pi and my front door from the point of view of an Amazon delivery man. And that would be the connection. All I need to do is get the Pi to short those contacts out, and the door opens. So it's a slightly longer story than that. The easy part of it, well, the easy part in theory, is getting the hardware to work. So as I said, I'm really not a hardware person, but it really, even for me, it wasn't too difficult to find a book called Raspberry Pi Cookbook, which says you want to switch a high-power DC device, and high power in this context means anything more than 3 volts. Using a transistor. So what you have here is a switching circuit in which this thing here, it's called a MOSFET, metal oxide semiconductor field effect transistor, and it really operates like a relay. It costs about 60 pence if you buy them in bulk, I think. And it protects the GPIO controller of the Pi against high voltages. One of the problems about the Raspberry Pi is that the GPIO controller, which is actually on the chip on the main chip, is completely unprotected, or virtually completely unprotected against high voltages. And so it's really, really easy to need to go out and buy yet another Raspberry Pi. And that's happened to me more than once. So connecting anything up is quite a kind of it's anxiety making for someone who doesn't know very much about this. But basically all you have to do then is just buy one of these things and make up a little breadboard like this, and the 12-volt DC power comes through the door and through the entry phone system. And then you short out the contacts in the way that I showed there. So that's the hardware part of the talk over, really. Here's my really sophisticated hardware setup, which actually is here. I would hold it up, but the whole thing is just so fragile the way I make it that I don't dare move it once I've got it to work. The sticky tape in the dispenser over there came in handy this morning. The one thing you just have to kind of accept that if I can get this buzzer to sound, which I've got on the table there, then I can actually get my door to open. That's the hardware part of the talk over. You wouldn't believe how long it took me to get that to work, but it really is very straightforward. Now we come on to the more interesting part of it, which is that this is all very well, but it's not actually got me all that great a distance towards getting the door operated from the outside, which is obviously what I really want. I mean, I guess I can make the Pi. The requirement here is to one of this is the ground pin, I think, and to make GPIO. No, it's number 16 I've got here. Is to make that is to just send that high. That's all. That's all I want to do. And I can do that. All I need to do in order to get that to work is simply run a program on the Pi which sends that pin high. So how am I going to do that? Well, I'll tell you how far back I was with this stuff when I started. I looked in books about how to power the Raspberry Pi, and I found one of these phone charger things. I thought that's got the right voltage, and I even found an HDMI connector and connected it to the screen and a keyboard. I found a USB keyboard, and I turned it on, and I was really surprised that nothing happened. And I actually had to go to the local the hacker lab, and I said to them, "Why this isn't working?" And they said, "Well, you have to put an operating system on first." I didn't know this. So I went down and bought a flash card, and I installed Raspbian. Raspbian is the Debian version for the Pi. Can I ask how many people have done this? Because usually everybody puts their hands up. All right, so I can go over this pretty quickly. I'm not going to talk about it very much because it's absolutely standard stuff. You get Raspbian. These are the instructions I used for the Mac. I put the flash card into the Mac, unmounted it, did a bit copy of the using DD, a bit copy of the Raspbian image onto the card, ejected the card from the Pi. From the Mac, stuck it in the Pi. The Mac uses for internet sharing a kind of quite a weird way of allocating IP addresses. So you've got to do a bit of work to find out where it is using netstat or something like that. And I found it puts it on gives it that local address. There's a version of DHCP on the Mac which does this, and you find out where it is eventually, and all you need to do then is configure the Pi, and really all that involves is basically just making sure that the date and time are set right. So that's the objective there. So there's nothing non-standard about this at all. And then, because I'm a Java person, I thought, well, I'll program this in Java, and so I got Pi4J, which is a very good Java library for the Raspberry Pi. Installed that in a very standard way. Built the examples. The examples are pretty important because there's one example in there which does exactly what I want, which is to set a pin high. That's really all I want to do. So this stuff here is going to be important to you if you want to know about how to manage the GPIO control. The GPIO board is the general purpose I/O, is the way in which the Pi interfaces with the outside world. So if you want to know about how to do that, then you need to read about provisioning pins and so forth. But I didn't want to do any of that at all. All I want to do is just pulse the pin, just to send it high. And to prove that I could do it, I changed one of these examples a little bit so that it would work in that kind of way. And this is my program, my GPIO example.java. And this, by the way, is actually about all you're going to need to know about what I'm going to do with the Raspberry Pi as well. So what you'd think would be the core of this talk actually didn't take very long at all. So let me just demonstrate, if I can do, if I've got it right, the fact that this might work. So let's have a look. Where am I? Oh, that didn't work very well. Sorry. Let me just see if I can get us up. Opt Command D. Opt Command T. Toggle mirroring. Sorry. Right. Display menu. Right. Where is it gone? Right. Bartender. Sorry. I'm just trying to bring up the demo screen. We got a bit of problem with this demo because what I really want to get to is the point at which I can actually phone the front door. That's the point of the conversations part, and that didn't work very well because phoning a data card from a UK data card from the UK. Doesn't work too well, so I had to buy a Danish one, and that didn't work too well either. So let me see if I'm in the right place. PWD. Yeah, I'm not. CD / opt / Pi4J. Right. And what I want to do now is just to see whether or not I can actually make the buzzer sound from, that is to say, bring that pin high from the from Java. So that would be an achievement to start off with. So I'm in the Pi4J examples library, and I'm going to use my butchered example so that I can do something really simple, and it will sound the buzzer as often as I tell it to now. I hope, if it's working. Right. So I said 2, and it's actually done what I said, something that doesn't often happen when I'm doing demonstrations. So, right, good. So that's, I'm kind of joining the bits together. So this talk is all about joining bits together. Now I've managed to get, at least in principle, I've managed to get a Java program to operate my front door. But how am I going to get the Java program to be called by the Amazon delivery man? So the big question is, what's going to be the user interface? So there's a number of possible ways in which the delivery man may be able to talk to the Pi. So the obvious one would be to use a mobile app, but he's not going to have a mobile. He's not going to have my app on his phone. Another possibility would be to have a web page, because he could reach that, but he's going to need to have a smartphone. And a web page isn't actually really a great way of asking him. He's standing out there in the rain, and trying to get him to actually to type in the URL of a web page, or even scan a Q code isn't really going to be very good either. So I thought, well, I'm going to push the boat out a bit. And the one thing I do know he's got a phone, and so one easy way of getting it to work would be to use the DTMF codes on the phone. And actually that really is very easy. But I thought I'll try really to do it the hard way, because what would be really cool would be to get some voice recognition to work. And so I thought, well, I'll push that all the way. And actually I managed to get these 2 things to work. So, but this is much harder to implement, as you can imagine, because you've got to get phone software onto the Pi. So there's a private branch exchange, an open source private branch exchange for Linux called Asterisk, which is where I spent a lot of time lurking in order to do this project. Has anybody come across Asterisk? Yeah, quite often you do find people who have done. Let me put my glasses on and ask you, so that I can see you, and ask you, what kind of experience did you have working with Asterisk?
After getting the good gateway, it was actually pretty straightforward to use Asterisk to. Well, I haven't used it with the Pi. I only used it with the software, computer software, like Softload and stuff like that. And I think it actually works.
Did you find it easy to configure it and to understand?
No.
I think I figured out what's going on with Asterisk. It is really, or at least it's been suggested to me, what's going on with it, because I've given this talk in other places where people have tried to use it, and they've said that I wasn't being entirely stupid in the difficulties I had with it. It's open source software, but it's maintained by a commercial firm who make an awful lot of money from consultancy. And this isn't necessarily the best setup for getting really good user documentation and a clear user interface. I'm putting that really, I think, in fairly mild terms. In particular, there's something called FreePBX, which is a graphical front-end configuration tool for Asterisk. And one thing that you think is, if you're a software person, then you think, oh, well, this is just more kinds of software, and I know about software, so I'll be able to figure it out. And what you don't realize, and well, I didn't realize anyway, the voice over IP, which is what this is all about, actually comes from a completely different tradition. It comes from telephony, and the assumptions about the way things work are completely different, and the culture is completely different, and lots of things that people take for granted you just won't understand at all. So you're looking for a nice configuration tool that will make it easy, and you get this thing called FreePBX, which you can actually get. There's even an image for this called RaspPBX, which I tried out. And you're some distance into this before you discover that FreePBX depends on a whole lot of modules which are not free. right? So actually to get it working is going to actually seriously cost you quite a lot of money. And you know, and I'm just playing with this stuff. It's pretty clear to me, I think, how this whole thing goes. There's a further problem as well, because Asterisk has evolved through very many different versions. And so although there are books on Asterisk, they all relate to different versions of Asterisk, and that nobody cares in the Asterisk world about backward compatibility. So the instructions you get may or may not work, depending on which version of Asterisk you've got. I found this interesting, let's put it like that. And in particular, I found it especially interesting because what I wanted, in the end, what I wanted was some modules that people don't always want for Asterisk, because I wanted to be able to phone this thing, not over the public switched, and not over a gateway, which is the usual way you would come in. You would phone a number which a host, a server farm provides, and that provides a gateway into onto the internet. I wanted to phone it directly, using a dongle. So that requires extra modules, and you have to make sure that those are compatible with the version of Asterisk that you've got, and so on and so on. So all of that was pretty tough. In the end, what I did was I installed Asterisk. I mean, after several false attempts and reflashed cards. In the end, what I did was this is my reasons for not using free PBX, because the management modules are commercial, not using the Debian package because it's not up to date, and it was going to be incompatible with the dongle module that I wanted, and eventually I installed it from source, which actually wasn't all that hard. That was fairly straightforward when I finally got to it. So here I am now with Asterisk on the phone and some configuration required, and I think I can probably do another demo at this point. What am I supposed to be doing? Show sip.conf and show the Dialplan. Right, let's do that. That's not what I want. Right. So I'm here in Asterisk, and actually I've already got it running, but let me see. So I'll go to, in fact, I've already got one of these things up already, but it's the wrong one. So I'll say sip.conf. So sip is the, I'm trying to remember what SIP stands for. It's an IP protocol, which is sort of like FTP or HTTP, one of these protocols that sits on top of IP, and the Asterisk is configured to use SIP with this configuration language that you can see here, which is kind of quite it's idiosyncratic, I think, is the polite word for it. So these things here are called contexts. This is the only one. I've got an external SIP account here for which I was going to use if I used a gateway, a SIP gateway of the kind I described. But I didn't go with that in the end, and I'll explain why later on. What I've got here at the moment is simply an account for an extension, what they call an extension, the context for an extension, which is going to be called 1, and the way that the Asterisk will react when it gets a call in from the extension called 1 is shown on the Dialplan. So the Dialplan is in this file called extensions.conf, and sorry. The 1 links to the extension that it's going to be called in from. So at the moment I've got. Let me actually go to the. Let me first of all go to the application I'm going to use for making the calls here, because I can't actually. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to use the external phone because I'm in Denmark and my SIM card won't work. It won't work from Denmark. I'm going to use instead a soft phone, an application called VOIP, which is essentially behaves like a voice over IP hardware phone, only it just runs on the computer. I've configured this user extension called JDK.io, which is going to call in from extension 100. And in the configuration for VOIP says that it's going to use the account called 1. That ties up with the context 1 in sip.conf, and it's going to go to that IP address which I know is set right for the Pi. The username is going to be 1, and the password is going to be change me please, the one that you saw on the 1 account in sip.conf. So in principle now, if I call from Zoipa into the asterisk, I should get whatever it's saying is going to happen when you get extension 100 when extension 100 calls, because that's what we're set to. So. And I've set it in this case. I've said, well, I want an extension 100. I want it first of all to answer. I want it to answer the phone, and then I want it to call this, which is my little Java example to sound the buzzer. I've said 4 times here just to be different, and then it's going to hang up. You can have a lot of stuff in here. So the Dialplans are very extensive and very horrible language. So, for example, this is sort of how you have to write it. We'll see some slight improvement on this later on. But basically, this is Asterisk's idea of a scripting language. Right. So let's see whether that works. Maybe and maybe not. If I try calling it, what should happen is okay. So it isn't working, and why isn't it working? Let me just try that again. The window we're looking at here is this one, and this one seems to be saying that it actually called. Let's just try that again. Demos are always this really painful business. All right, okay, so we got a call. All right, doesn't look like it's got the right IP address, but I don't know why. Exited non-zero. Exited non-zero. Let me just check this again. Sudo java cp sudo java cp opt I for j my GPO example 4. It should be running the one on top. That's the one I want it to run on top, but I left I didn't comment that out. So maybe that might have been the problem. Let me just try writing that file and just seeing whether I'll reload the Dialplan and just see if that helps at all. Otherwise, we're going to be short of demos. How satisfying that sound is. It's music to my ears. Right, so we're making some progress, because now I can get in from the phone system to the to operate the door, which has got to be good. But obviously we're still inside the flat to make that work, and that's not where I want my delivery man to be. I want this to work from outside the flat. So what I need is to extend that Dialplan. I mean, at the moment all that would happen, supposing I allowed that to happen, then all I would need would be a call, assuming I could get in from the public switch network. All I would need would be a call, and then the door would open. And I don't want, and since I'm giving this talk everywhere, I don't trust you guys enough to let you into my flat just by knowing the number. So what I'm really looking for is I'm going to need some authentication. This is the basic idea. So and since I'm going to use voice recognition, this is what the Dialplan is going to look like. Actually, the Dialplan that I eventually came up with was a bit more complicated than this for 2 reasons. Partly because I decided I was going to have different messages, different voice messages for an unrecognizable code and an incorrect code, on the basis that one of them was just a system failure and the other one was a burglar trying to get in. But maybe that wasn't really necessary. And also because I had enough of these demos fail that I decided to add DTMF recognition as well, which works really, really well and quickly. The voice recognition is a lot harder. But the basic idea is, as you can see, not very complicated. I've got to record the voice input, convert it to a recognizable format because I'm going to send it to a voice recognition service. Or I'm going to need to recognize it and attempt to voice recognition of a numeric code. I'm going to have a numeric code stored on the Pi, and in fact, what my intention really is, in the kind of longer term, to have not just one numeric code, but to have numeric codes for each different user. So I'm going to produce a one-off code for the Amazon delivery man, but when I decide to let a room in my flat with Airbnb, I'm going to issue a code which can be used a number of times, but will be tied to a particular phone number, which you can do with Asterisk fairly easily. And I'll validate it according to the date, because I don't want my ex-friends to be able to get in the same way as I want my friends to be able to get in. So all of that stuff I put on one side, and I've just got a dummy database which is just a file with a single number in it, which is the one that I'm using. I used to laugh this off, and I used to say, well, that's an exercise to the user to figure out how to configure the authentication. And then I thought about this a bit, and I realized it's all very well for me to say that, because I'm setting up authentication from a direct wired connection to the Pi. So I can put in numbers and authentication information. I can put that in a very secure way. But of course, in real life, you would want the authentication information to be supplied over an internet connection. I want to be able to tell I don't want to have to be in the flat every time I put in a new authentication number. And so I realized that actually setting up the authentication information is an internet security problem. So it's not as trivial as I thought it was. But for this demo, it is quite trivial. All I'm going to do is I've got a file on the Pi with a number in it, and I'm just going to record voice input, convert it to a recognizable format. I'll talk about that in a moment. Attempt voice recognition, and then go back and try again if it doesn't work. So what are the speech recognition options if you want this to work? Well, basically it falls into two categories. It can either be offline or online. Offline might well be a good option. So there's this CMU Sphinx is the kind of state of the art for voice recognition, for offline voice recognition. But it's quite heavyweight, and I decided not to go down that on this kind of well-known, rigorous basis of having read a blog post which suggested that it was going to be difficult to configure, and it was going to use up a lot of the Pi's processing ability and a lot of memory. And the setup was going to be difficult enough that I felt I would try the option that almost everybody else tries. Instead of doing all of this preparatory work for it, I thought I would... and I also considered as well using the Asterisk built-in speech recognition, because Asterisk knows how to do this. But of course, once again, it turns out that's very far from free. It's quite expensive. So I decided to go for what everyone else is doing, which is online. And there's... most people use Google Voice APIs. At the time that I was doing this work, the Google Voice APIs were unofficial and undocumented, and I couldn't figure out what the options were. I found plenty of examples, but I didn't actually find any. There was nowhere was the REST API properly documented. By contrast, I mean, actually that's changed. So I think about 2 months ago, Google decided that they were going to provide voice recognition as a service, and they've documented it, and it's currently free to developers. But of course, that's not the long-term intention. The long-term intention is one of two things. Either they're going to charge for it, or else they're going to drop it. And you don't know which of the two it'll be. So be careful about committing to that. One thing I wanted was that this was a kind of idea that I had about the way that this box should work is you should just be able to nail it to the wall and forget about it. So the idea of having to pay repeated charges wasn't very attractive to me. I thought I'd just like to be able to just forget about it. So that's the the cloud speech API that they've produced. But I used instead an IBM option, the Watson speech recognition engine, which I found to be pretty good. So you will actually see that working if the demos work at all. There are probably many other options for speech recognition. It's a big area where you need to know a lot. But I chose a pretty. I just wanted something I could get working reasonably quickly, and Watson turned out to be pretty good. It's really well documented. So, apart from a difficulty that I'll mention in terms of actually getting the speech files sent to Watson, I thought this would be pretty straightforward. It wasn't too bad. So, implementing the Dialplan. Well, of course I could have used the Asterisk so-called scripting language, but it's just really pretty horrible. The learning curve for Asterisk, I found, to get anything to work, I found the learning curve was steep and long. And the products, a lot of the products that you want to use aren't free. Basically, my sense was, I've got Asterisk installed. Now I want to make it run, but I really don't want to have anything more to do with it than I absolutely have to. This was a very strong feeling that I had. So I thought, I'm just going to use. I'm going to get out of it as quickly as I can. Documentation isn't great. There are a lot of different versions. Scripting language is even less great, is my polite way of putting it. And I'm going to use another language. So what am I going to use? Well, the Asterisk actually has this possibility built into it, the Asterisk gateway interface. People as old as me remember where the idea of a gateway interface comes from, because there used to be something called the Common Gateway Interface, which was a way of getting web servers to run programs from inside of when they got requests from a web page. And this was really horrible because it actually involved starting a new process for every single client request. And that's actually how the Asterisk Gateway Interface works. But there's something called the Fast AGI, which has a separate standalone server, and it sends TCP requests to that, so that you don't have to start a new process all the time. And AGI and Fast AGI are supported by various languages, and including Java and Groovy. And actually, there's a Java library called Asterisk Java, which only supports Fast AGI. So I was really quite happy about that, because even at the very low level of demand that my application has, I mean, I don't really care about, from efficiency terms, about starting a new process. But that's just such a horrible thing to do that I'd really prefer to use Fast AGI. So you run a freestanding server which listens on some port or other, and that's just a piece of Java which listens, and then it dispatches the request in a way that I will describe. I didn't want to use Java for the actual Dialplan scripting language because you're going to make many mistakes, and you're going to have to tweak it, and you don't want to put a development environment onto the Pi. I thought, though I don't know anything very much about Groovy, like every other topic in this talk, I thought this was a good option for installing for using a proper scripting language. So you install Groovy, and the way that this works is it's a bit complicated. The extensions, the Dialplan says, oh look, yeah, this is great. See, look, I haven't had to write each step 1, 2, 3 here. I can just write n now because they've improved that. And also, I don't have to write extend arrow. I can write same here. And I found these improvements in a book on Asterisk, which said, and I think I've got this right, in the unceasing quest for scripting simplification, they said, we have made these improvements. So this is their idea of a big improvement. So what happens is that when Asterisk gets this, sees that it's meant to dispatch a request to a Fast AGI server, this gets sent to the default. I guess it gets sent to port 4573 by default, and I'm saying that I'm saying to the default AGI server, I want to run that example. I haven't paused to show you how the demo that shows that I actually can make this stuff work from Groovy, but maybe that's probably pretty ordinary for most people, I think.
Maurice, 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Right. Yeah. So the request gets dispatched to the default to the AGI server, which then uses a dispatch file called fast AGI mapping properties, and that sends it to a standard script, the Groovy AGI script. It'll send everything to this Groovy AGI script, and the result of that is that it gets this Groovy AGI script gets sent the stuff that was required from the user request. Run GPIO example .groovy, and it gets sent the channel as well. A channel is a communication mechanism back to Asterisk. So the channel will allow you to ask, for example, what was the telephone number I was called on, and it'll actually allow you to issue commands back to Asterisk, like, for example, I want to play a voice file. And that kind of thing. So these are the two things I want to run. This is the Dialplan I want to run in effect, written in Groovy, and this is the communication mechanism back to Asterisk. So finally, I'm ready. I think I'm skipping some demos because I'm very short of time, thanks to the configuration problems at the start. So I'm finally at the stage where I'm thinking I want to get in from the public switch network to get to this whole setup, because otherwise I've got my guys standing outside the door still. The options for that are I can either go through a SIP gateway, session initiation protocol. This might well be a good option, although you'll have to pay a gateway provider in order to do this. So that doesn't really fit with my idea that this should be cost-free. It should be free of ongoing maintenance costs. It could well work for you, and it might well be easy. But my problem is that SIP is a peculiar protocol in the sense that it doesn't use only a single port. It doesn't use a single anonymous port because it uses a different ports for establishing the call from what it uses actually for the voice traffic. And so since I'm in the university and I use the university's routers to get out, I'm on the university network, I can't get the university admins to open ports on their firewall to let me out. So I have to tunnel my way out. And that works for most things, but it's not going to work. I don't think it's going to work for this very complicated setup. So the alternative is direct connection to the Raspberry Pi using this USB modem, which works really well in the UK, but as you'll have gathered, doesn't work too well in Denmark. So I actually can, and therefore maybe I shouldn't talk too much about the channel driver for this modem. This very standard, I don't know how to pronounce it, Huawei 3G dongle. You can get hold of this. This modem is this modem and ones like it are absolutely generic, and you can get hold of these in any telecoms shop. And you can also get the SIM card, the data card that will work with it. And you may be luckier than I was yesterday and today. You've got to set up the dongle library for Asterisk. And you've got to disable the PIN code on the SIM, and you've got to make sure that the device mode is not going to help. You've got to make sure that the modem device mode is set correctly, because these modems are another configuration file for Asterisk, which will allow you to configure the way that the dongle will behave. And again, I'm kind of short of time. So what I actually plan to do, it's a shame that the microphone's not working, because what I plan to do is great, thank you very much. Not that I need it so much for my voice, but I need it for the output from here. So I hope to be able to demonstrate that we really can make this work with the voice recognition. That would be quite nice if I can do that. Right, so that's not what I want. This is what I want. So I just need to make sure that I've got everything working here. AJ server. I'm starting at the fast AGI server there, and we've got this working here. Now I just need to make sure that I've got the right Dialplan set, which is not the very primitive one that I had there, but the one that really is going to do the job, I hope. Which is this one. Not this one, but this one. This is the real Dialplan. So this might work. You never know. And now I have to remind myself because I've forgotten what the code I used was. So it's so I need to know the right number for it. It's in dummy codes DB. And the number is 21346. So here we go. I will try. I need to reload the Dialplan. Whoops. Reload the Dialplan. Reload. Oh, thank you. And it might work and it might not. We'll give it one go, and then I will conclude with a little video. All right. So it's this one, isn't it?
Please say your entry code now.
21364. Converting audio format. Sending it to somewhere in America for speech recognition. It's very exciting. Very slow. 21364. Yeah, you win some, you lose some. It came quite close. Let me just conclude with. I know, but you can't miss the final demonstration of how this really should work. Here comes my delivery man again.